Morning students. In last class we have discussed the conservation, that is a narrow utilizations, a broad utilization and also an ethical utilizations. So here ethical utilization means here it is a moral utilizations where here through the spiritual, religious, spiritual as well as the culture will be taken place, so that here the moral issues which are taken place is not considered for the science, but also here to preserve the various types of species should be taken place. Why means to conserve, why we are able to conserving a species means the species which are becoming into a threatened or endangered or valuable species which are presenting, or endemic species which are presenting, they becoming into the an extinct. So if the extincts are taken place, here we cannot see such type of species in future generations. So to conserve for the future generations, we are able to conserving the various types of species, either plants or an animal species. Now coming to that, the conservations of species, there are two type of conservations are presenting. Conservation that means here there are two type of conservations are presenting. One we can call as an in situ conservation, and second one is an ex situ the conservation. First one is the in situ conservation and second one is an ex situ conservation. What is in situ conservation means the conservation of a species within the an habitat or within the an ecosystem. If the species are conserving is taken place, so that is we can call as an in situ. In means inside the habitat only. If the species are conserving, that means here we can take in place the conservation of species, conservation of species within the habitat. That means where they, what is habitat means the place where they are living. If the species are conserving within the habitat, then such type of conservation we can call as an in situ conservations. So here in situ conservations we can take in place. There are various types of an in situ conservations are presenting. One we can call as species preservation. The species preservation, and second one is the assemblage preservation, assemblage preservation, and the third one is the habitat preservations. Here habitat preservations. In the habitat preservations we can take in place such as the hotspots, natural parks, national parks, and here biosphere reserves, and fourth one we can take in place shade groves, scarecrows, scared species, scared species, and also landscape, scared landscape. So these are the various types of the preservations that is habitat preservations are hotspots, national parks, biosphere reserves, scarecrows, scared species, and scared landscapes. So these are the various types of an in situ conservation, where the species are conserving within the habitat. Then such type of species or conservation we can call as an in situ conservations. And second one, ex situ, if the conservation of species outside the habitat. Here conservation of species outside the habitat. Outside the habitat means they are separately, that is separately they are separately they are conserved. Separately they are conserved. Then we can call them as an ex situ conservations. An example, if you see an example here, in example we can see botanical gardens, botanical gardens, and zoological parks, and third one is seed banks, tissue culture, and lastly we can call it as a cryopreservation. Cryopreservation. So these are the various types of that is an ex situ conservations, where these ex situ means outside the habitat, they are separately preserving. Then such type of species or conservation we can call as an ex situ. If the conservation is species is taken place within the habitat, then such type of conservation we can call as an in situ and an ex situ. These are the two types of conservations where they are taken place. Now one by one we will discuss in this topic, that is. Now coming to the first one in situ conservations, that is the species in situ conservation. In situ conservation. So in this first one, species, the species preservation. Here the species preservation means the preservation of or protecting of a species, single species, either plants and animal species. So we can call that as a species preservation. That means the protection of a single species, of plants and animals. Plants and animals is known as as a species preservation. Species preservation. So here species preservation means here species are preserving, a single species are preserved in the protected within the habitat. So the species are protecting. So we can call them as a species preservation. Example we can take in place as the rhinoceros preservation in the Kaziranga sanctuary Kaziranga sanctuary of Rajasthan. Kaziranga of Assam. Kaziranga of Assam. And also the tigers, the Indian tigers, that means the great Indian the tiger. Tigers in Gir sanctuary. Gir sanctuary in and Gujarat, that is we can call as the Gir University, that is that we can take in place as here. The second one is the Indian lions. Lion, that is Gir National Park. Gir National Park or Gir National Sanctuary or Park in Gujarat. So these are the two where the species are, that means Indian rhinoceros in Kaziranga Sanctuary of Assam and Indian lion, that is Gir National Park or Sanctuary in Gujarat, where the species are protecting, a single species are protecting within the habitat. So such type of reservations we can call as a species preservation. And the second one is assemblage preservation or protection. The assemblage preservation. Here assemblage means a group of species are protecting. So if protecting of the protection of a group of species. A group of species is known as protection of a group of species or assemble of many species or assemble of species is known as the assemblage preservation. Example we can take in place as the Bharatpur National, that is Bharatpur Park Sanctuary of birds. Bharatpur Bird Sanctuary of birds. So here the birds, various types of birds are group of various types of species of birds are conserving, where a group of species are conserving or assembly of species. Assembly means group of, that means many species are combining here. So here many species of birds are conserving Bharatpur Bird Sanctuary in of Rajasthan. Here of Rajasthan. Here it will helpful for the assembly of the species are taken place. This is the second one, where first one is species preservation, second one is the hospital assemblage, the preservation, and third one will discuss. So third one is the habitat the habitat preservation. Preservation, or otherwise we can use the word as a protection also. Here habitat protection means the protection of many species in a large area in an with the large area with an ecosystem, we can call this as the habitat preservation. So there are various types of the habitat preservations are there. That the first one is the hotspots. So here hotspots means here the preservation of the various species of vascular plants. Here the preservation of the protection of vascular plants, where here it protection of the vascular plants within the habitat, within the habitat. So here the hotspots, there are here will having 1500 species of vascular tissues are present. The plants, 1500 species of the vascular plants are presenting, where these are helpful the protecting the vascular plants. And here there are 3 hotspots. There are 3 hotspots in India. 3 hotspots in India. One is western and eastern Himalayas. Western and eastern Himalayas. And the third one is Western Ghats. Western Ghats and Sri Lanka. And the third one is Indo-Burma Himalayas. So these are the 3 hotspots where they are presenting in India. There are in India will having 3 hotspots are presenting. One is Western and Eastern Himalayas, Western Ghats and Sri Lanka, and Indo-Burma Himalayas are presenting, where here the species are protecting, the vascular plants are protecting within the habitat. There are 1500 species are presenting in this habitat. And here in hotspot, that is northeastern, there are 3 hotspots are presenting, northeastern and western Himalayas, and the second one Western Ghats and also the Sri Lanka, and the third one is Indo-Burma Himalayas. And the species which are presenting in this in hotspots, they are and endemic species. So here endemic species means already we know that the species are presenting at a geographical area only. The species which are presenting at a particular geographical area only. So such type of species are called as an endemic species are presenting in the hot spots. And second, coming to the second one, the national parks. The national parks. So here the national parks, these are protected, these are large vasted areas. These are protecting of the protection of species in a large vast areas within the habitat. within the habitat. They are having large vast areas are presenting. In this it includes the forest or otherwise deserts, and also grasslands and also ecosystems. So these are various and it was the national parks was impressed, that means provided by the IUCN and also WWF. IUCN means International Union of Conservation of nature and natural resources. Nature and natural resources we can call as IUCN. WWF means World Wildlife Fund. World Wildlife Fund, where it is present in 1961, and IUCN is formed in the year 1948, where these two societies are helpful for the establishment of the national parks, where the preservation of a large area, that means species preservation in a large vast areas within the habitat in a forest, a deserts, or a grassland, an ecosystem. So we can call them as that are protected by IUCN as well as a WWF, a World Wildlife Fund. And also here we can see that is the third one is sanctuaries. Here the third one is sanctuaries. So here the sanctuaries, these are smaller than the national park. These are smaller than national parks, where the species are protection is taken place. So here the species which are present, that means in sanctuaries, these are smaller than the national parks, and they are presenting the sanctuaries, where these are protecting various types of the sanctuaries are presenting. Already we have studied Gir National Parks in Gujarat, and also here these are the Bharatpur Bird Sanctuary in Rajasthan, and also these are the various types. Example, we can take in place a Gir National Park, Gir National Sanctuary, Gir National Sanctuary. Sanctuary. Gir National in Gujarat. And also here Bharatpur National a park. So these are the various types of the sanctuaries, where these are smaller than the national parks. Next, coming to the scaled species. So here the scaled species, it is can be defined as the traditionally preservation of species of plants and animals, of plants and animals in religious in religious or cultural beliefs you know, that means here traditionally conservation or preservation of species of plants and animals in a religious or cultural beliefs, then such species are called as the scared species. An example, if you see in here the tulasi and also neem, and also here cow and the snake. So these are the species where they are traditionally religious beliefs are presenting. In these plants and animals, they are believed in the form of the God, so that these species are preserving. So such type of species which are can able to preserve due to the religious or a cultural beliefs, then such type of preservation we can call as the scared species. Next, the scared grouse. The scared grouse. So here the scared grouse means traditionally preservation of species by the, that means that is preservation of patches of species of forests. Here traditionally preservation of the species in our species or patches of species of a forest, of the forest to the dietaries is known as the traditional, that is we can call as the scared grouse. That means they are at a species, patches of species which are presenting at a forest or local. That means they are belong to the forest regions. So they are culturing will be taken place. So they are called as the scared grouse and scared landscapes and scared landscape. Here the tradition of preservation of species by the local communities, by the ancestral dietaries we can call as, that means preservation of species by the local communities or the patches of communities by the dietaries of the, otherwise here we can say as the ancestral dietaries, then we can call as scared landscapes. That is traditionally preservation of the species, preservation of a species to the local dietaries, to the local communities or the ancestral the dietaries. Ancestral dietaries, that means through the ancestral, that means here patches of species are preserving where in local communities. Here local bodies are taken place in scared grouse, but here local communities will be preserving these type of species, or but is taken place by the ancestral dietaries. That means it is producing from the ancestral forms, the species are preservation are taken place. So such type of species preservation we can call as scared landscapes. That is scared species, scared grouse, and also the scared landscapes. So these are the various types of the in situ conservations where the species are conserved within the habitat. So such type of preservation or protection of species we can call as an in situ conservation. Next, coming to the second one. Next, coming to the The second one, that is an ex situ conservation. So here ex situ conservation means outside the habitat. If the conservation of species outside the habitat, if the species are conservation is taken place, then we can taken place as an ex situ a conservation. There outside the habitat, this is taken place. And also here we know that first one is the botanical gardens, and the second one is a geological parks, and the third one is a seed bank, and the fourth one is the tissue culture, and the last one is the cryopreservation. So these are the various types of an ex situ, where here botanical gardens, the species are cultured. That means here only the plant species are cultured, are protected in an separate place. So here we can call that as the botanical garden, Indian Botanical Garden in Kolkata, and also here in Karnataka also we are having the botanical gardens. So that are the gardens where we can take in place botanical gardens, where here only the plant species are cultured, are cultivating or protection of a plant species which are extinct or the threatened species. So we can call that as a botanical gardens. And here geological parks. Here geological parks means here only protection of the animals and their captivity captivity. That means their culture will be taken place in the animals. So we can call them as a geological parks. So here example we taken place Nehru Zoological Parks in Hyderabad. Likewise here there are several zoological parks are presenting only the protection of the various types of animal species and their cultivation, that is captivity. That means the breeding also will be taken place in these places. So they are called as the zoological parks. That means third one, gene bank. Gene bank means here the germplasm. That means the germplasm of a seed, where they are taken place, they are dormant. The seeds are conditions. The seeds, the germplasm of a seed dormancy, where it is taken place at the seeds are stored at minus 20 degree centigrades. So that this, with the help of germplasm, here the endemic species or endangered species which are presenting, that species can able to store the seeds of the plants and can able to present. That means with that species can able to cultured with the help of these seed banks, where their seeds are, that means endemic species or threatened species, plants which are taken place, that will be stored at minus 20 degrees centigrades and can able to culture or produce a new variety of the breeds or plants can able to produce in the seed bank. And also here a tissue culture. Here also the germplasm, it is also a type of a germplasm of the culture, that is we can take and place germplasm of callus formations, callus culture, embryoids, embryoids, Under callus formation, embryoids, here the embryo culture will be taken place with the help of a germplasm theory and also callus formation. Callus means here undifferentiated cells which are taken place. That means a single cell can able to produce the entire a plant. So such type of culture we can call as a tissue culture. That means we are taken place a cell in a tissue, so that that entire cell can able to produce the single a plant can able to producing, that is we can call as a callus formation, callus culture or embryoid culture with the help of a tissue where new genetical recombinant plants can able to produce the tissue culture. Nowadays what are the plants we are producing that is produced to the tissue culture in this that is where they taken place in a tissue culture. Next, last one is the cryo preservation. Here cryopreservation means the preservation of the germ, that is the preservation of the seeds, that is the sperms, preservation of the sperms, the preservation of sperms at minus 196 degrees centigrade at a liquid nitrogen, in a liquid nitrogen. Then the such type we can call them as the cryopreservations. So here that means the sperms are preserved in a minus 196 degrees centigrade at liquid nitrogen we are preserving. So these species which are preserved we can utilize. That means here without the bulls or male organism, here artificially we can able to produce a new type of species are produced, so that these species, that means during cryopreservation we can able to transport the male gametes to any place or any place of the on earth or in the any place of the world. We can able to transport it and we can produce a new variety of a species can be produced in this by the process of that is cryopreservation, so that the extinct species, that means not extinct species, the endemic or the species which are going into threatened or endangered species, that species sperms are collected and can able to produce a new, that means we can able to produce the species of the next generation, where we can preserve the various types of species by storing of the sperms. So that here this type of preservations we can call as the cryopreservation, where the sperms are preserved at minus 190 degrees centigrade at a liquid and nitrogen conditions. So these are taken place outside the habitat, where they are in a large areas are taken place, and we are cultivating the plants and animal species are separately we are cultivating, and we are preserving the species for the future generations. So these are the two type of conservations, that is an ex situ as well as an in situ conservations. So this is the topic of the biodiversity and conservations. Later we'll discuss in the next class.